Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Fire 5 at Phoenix. So we have a new month. We're now into the month of May 2021, which means we now have a new topic. And this month, the theme and topic is the mind-body connection. So all of my guests this month will be asking me questions on that topic. So it's nice to have new guests and new conversations. So today I am joined by Paul Harris. Paul's going to introduce himself in just a moment. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, simple concept: the guest comes in, they have the topic for the month, they bring with them 5 questions that I haven't seen. I will answer those questions as openly and as honestly as I can. We may well have some conversation around it, and hopefully within those answers and within that conversation, there are some hints, tips and advice that help you, the listener, or the person watching. So Paul, thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, perfect. First of all, thanks for inviting me on. It's really exciting. First dips into podcasts, which is quite
love it.
So so I basically do a lot of writing and speaking about mental health. Mainly it's about my experiences. I had a mental breakdown back in 2016, so I spent a lot of time in those early stages trying to figure out what had happened and what had gone wrong in my head. So I sort of found that there was a lot of information out there that wasn't just easily accessible sort of from your GP and stuff. So I started doing a lot of reading, and I thought, hey, more people need to know about this. So I started the blog, which is called And Breathe, and then just started writing, and then decided let's try and speak about it as well. So I also do now some talks on mental health, especially sort of anxiety and depression, and then I'm also trying to roll out some mental health programs as well, which hopefully go to sort of schools, universities, councils, all those sorts of things. So it very much comes from my own lived experience and what I've been through, and I sort of dip into sort of the realms of a bit of neuroscience as well, which is very unusual for me. I'm not scientifically minded at all, so it really helped me understand what was going on. And also when you're looking at therapies, it really helped me sort of figure out why you're doing something rather than just being told to do it. So that's me.
Oh, brilliant. And I think so this week in the UK it's Mental Health Awareness Week, and I think just in particular men's mental health, men's experiences of mental health, I think people are talking about it a lot more, but I think it's great, and thank you so much for being so open to sharing your experiences, because I think it's that element, isn't it, of knowing that for anybody who's listening, of knowing that you're not alone in this, that other people have experienced it but also come through it as well, which I think is really important, isn't it, of knowing that hope is there, that this isn't forever, that people have come through it and now can use those experiences in a positive way. And so I think especially for young people to hear men talk about it and see and hear people that they identify with, that they see themselves in, is really important. So I think it's great. And I am also not a scientist, but the neurology fascinates me. Social science, human sciences, very much much more interesting to me. Well, I wasn't allowed to do I had to do the single science. I wasn't allowed to do the more complex ones. I was just told to do the simple science, just get the GCSE and be on your way. But I did do sort of psychology and sociology at A level, and that absolutely find it fascinating. So anyway, I'm sure we'll have some conversations around that as this goes on. So you have 5 questions for me today?
I do indeed, yeah. So
fantastic.
The first one, I mean, really, I suppose let's start with the simple one, really. I mean, what is the mind-body connection? What is that all about?
And I think from my perspective, so if I backtrack to a few years ago, initially when I started to look at coaching, I was looking at nutrition coaching. So this was back in 2012, 2013. So I'd been through my own sort of weight loss journey, hadn't had a great experience, and was in that position where, because I had physically changed, a lot of people were asking me how I'd done it. And I didn't want to share how I'd done it because it wasn't a great experience. So I made the decision to study nutrition so that I could help people with a way that was much more sustainable and much more healthy. So my original plan was to be a nutrition coach. When I started coaching my guinea pig clients as part of the study, I found that actually lifestyle and mindset were a huge part of people's relationship with food. And whilst you can write a food plan for somebody and you can say, eat this, count the calories and eat this way and do it this way, that actually, for me, in the experiences that I had personally, but also the experiences that I was having with clients, was that you needed to look at the full picture. You needed to look at the relationship with food. You needed to look at their lifestyle. You needed to look at why they were where they were and how to approach that, and also the physical element as well. So that was at that point where I started to think, actually, I want to be able to coach the whole person rather than just the nutrition element. And so started to expand on studying to be able to do that. So for me, the mind-body connection is about helping to connect the fact that mental health, physical health, emotional health are all intrinsically linked, and that you can't just work on one in isolation, that one will impact the other. And actually that kind of holistic approach of working on all of them together gives you that sort of all-round health and well-being. And it's not about the absence of illness, it's about being able to wake up in the morning with purpose, but then also being physically able to do what you want to do, and mentally having that capacity and capability to be able to do what you want to do as well. And I think for me, that's what life is about. And I think it's very easy for us to pick one off and focus on one. So, right, physical health, I'm going to go start running or start going to the gym. But anyone that's done that will know that actually it impacts your mental health, it impacts your confidence, your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, how you feel in yourself, that they're all connected in. So I know you're a runner and you've run for charity and things like that, haven't you? So do you find that the link is there for you as well?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's the whole reason really why I started the running was, a lot of people sort of said go out and exercise, for your health, for your mental health, and things like that. And I think it does the same. As you said, there's a sort of definitely a connection to it, because obviously the more running you do, the more you have to fuel your body. So that's where the nutrition comes into it, and then it helps obviously your mind. And because I go running for miles and miles, but I can find that it can take me sort of almost 6 kilometers before my brain starts calming down to where I want it to be.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, I've got to sort of fuel myself properly and things like that. So I think definitely, on that aspect, it's it doesn't. I don't think it always works. Sometimes I've had runs where I've had panic attacks through the middle of a run, if I'm quite right when I set out. But no, definitely I found that it's been a massive help. And when the very first lockdown started, I had huge problems because we've got a dog, and I'd use the exercise allotment, shall we say, whatever they called it, to take the dog for a walk. So I sort of sacrificed my running for that.
Yeah. And
my mood just absolutely dropped. So in the end, I think literally the last week, I just had to say enough's enough, and I just had to go out and do the extra running just to help. So you're right, it also helps with your self-esteem. You feel better, you look better, so it's a big connection there, I think, definitely.
I think it's one of the for me, it's one of those things that you can map around a circle. but you could join the dots. You could, cross them over in any which way. If you eat better, you sleep better. But if you exercise, you tend to sleep better. If you sleep better, you eat better. And if you eat better, you exercise better. And you could almost, put all of the mental health benefits, emotional health benefits, physical health benefits. But you could, I think it's one of the few things that you could just draw. It's not about pairs or matching. You could draw those lines right the way across to just this huge spider web of lines in how they're all connected. And I know sometimes, I've had to run in lockdown. I haven't wanted to run, but the option of not doing anything was not an option. So I knew that I needed to get out there. I needed that cardiovascular, I needed the fresh air, I needed the headspace, I needed to not be working for half an hour. I don't run 6 kilometers. I'm 20-25 minutes is it's about right for me. But that's what I need. But it's, that not doing anything wasn't an option. So it was a case of finding something else. And walking is great. I think there's a huge amount of benefits for walking, but for me, it just wasn't enough. So it was just about, okay, what else can I do to feel better and just help my focus and just give me a break and all of those things. It's just all totally connected. And I think we have a tendency to focus on one, but actually, even if we focus on one, the impact tends to be across all of them anyway. So
definitely.
Great first question.
Really?
One down, 4 to go.
Yeah, number 2. You sort of almost did an opening for it, really, because for decades, like doctors and science has always looked at the split between psychology and physiology. And do you think there's still quite a big mindset that is still the same in a way, sort of maybe not so much with GPs, but maybe just in sort of general public's way of sort of thinking, whether people still see just sort of physical health and mental health sort of still separate?
I think so. I think we're definitely moving forward. I think people are definitely looking at the bigger picture and all of the ingredients, if you like, of what good health looks like. I think a lot of people, I think physical health certainly has always been on the radar, hasn't it? Because that's what you learn about in school. You learn about the physical health. You do PE, don't you? The importance of exercise, the importance of moving. PE is part of the curriculum. I know when I went to school, mental health, emotional health wasn't part of the curriculum. So you looked at physical health, and you might have talked about some of the benefits, but that was the focus, wasn't it, in the curriculum? That was the focus in, heart health and, being able to live longer. Whereas I think now, education in schools is much more balanced around the mental health and emotional health as well. Not as much as I would like to see. I think it needs to be covered more, but there's only so many hours in the school day, and decisions have to be made. So I think there needs to be some focus at home as well as at school in educating our children in how to eat, how to look after themselves, how to be fit and healthy all round. I think physical health's a much easier one for people to talk about, isn't it? Describe. It's much more visible, isn't it? Let's be real here. When you're not in good physical health, it's visible. But also you can have invisible poor physical health as well. You could look very well on the outside, and actually, if you're not looking after yourself in terms of nutrition and stress on the inside, it's not so visible. So I think people are kind of more aware of that now. The terms that people are talking about, the conversations that people are having, I think people are much more aware that you need to look after all of it. But I think still physical health is the obvious go-to, because I think from a stigma perspective, it's much easier to have that conversation, isn't it, of looking after your physical health. But it's nice to hear when you hear people talking about, I feel, it's that whole after a workout, isn't it? I feel so much better. Or, people say, I was so wound up when I came in today, and now I feel so much better. That even through physical health, people talk about the mental and emotional health benefits as well. I think it's moving in the right direction. I think when it's covered more sort of in all together, I think it will help. I think people are talking about these things a lot more, which does help, but sometimes it's that overwhelm of information then, isn't it? And people shut down. So it's that balance of educating, learning, understanding, finding what works for you, and then working with that.
Definitely. Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. I've been sort of connecting with some local gyms in the area, and they've sort of been saying, you know, obviously their priority is obviously sort of physical health and stuff like that, but then, you know, they've recognized as well that the mental, you know, health side of things, for, you know, they started looking very much more as though they're community bases. So because I think, I mean, you look at this two sides as well, you know, there's still the a lot of people are still afraid to even go to the gym because of all of the, like, the, you know, you've got to go and be muscly and, you know, well built and you know, sort of, I wouldn't say sort of like the fitness, good looking sort of side of things, which puts people off. And the lady I was speaking to was sort of saying, well, no, what their approach now is going to be is a lot more about getting community, but making it so that social place so people are exercising and sort of getting that mental health sort of fix as well. So it's but yeah, I think there's still a bit of work there. As I said, I think that was sort of you know, I
think there's that crossover, isn't there, starting to happen. And I think one of the most interesting things for me when lockdown happened was that I think it gave people permission. And I think when you connect the gyms closing through lockdown, I think it just gave that opportunity for gyms to talk about that connection between physical health and mental health. And one of the gyms that I used to train in, it's very much, it's a family run, old school iron gym. And the lockdown gave that opportunity for their gym members who probably don't talk about mental health very often, certainly not openly, to really start to come forward and say the gym is my mental, is as important for my mental health as much as it is for my physical health. And they did a recording chat, and that it was great to see people who just openly said, I don't talk about this. I don't talk about this stuff, but the gym is my lifeline. The gym is my community. It's where I go, and I might not talk about things, but I'm in a place where I feel supported, and I have that outlet to be able to balance out stresses of life. And I think, COVID is not a positive thing, but I think there's lots of positive things that will come out of this. And I think the connection between gyms and mental health, or physical activity and mental health, is one of the things that is going to come out of that, in that connection is now really, I think people are talking about that connection a lot more.
I suppose people have realised once it's been taken away or gone, that little section, it's kind of, you suddenly realise, wow, actually that was really important to my life. So I think that's what a lot of people have sort of realised, is kind of like, well, yeah, going and playing football, or going for a run or something, going swimming was so integral. And then when it's taken away, it's kind of like, oh, I really want this back. It's kind of it's there in the subconscious, isn't it?
It's all the connection, isn't it, of what else it means. And I think people, one of the things that when we do on one of the programs, we talk about activity, and what I ask them to make take notice of in that week is not just how many steps you've taken or what activity you've done, but what else does that activity involve? Is there a social element? Do you go and meet up with people for this activity? Take notice of how you feel before and how you feel after. So think about how it's impacting your mental and emotional health as part of that activity. Is it getting you outside? Is it getting you out of the house and in with other people? And I think that's the connection, isn't it? Is that it's not just about raising your heart rate, because we can all do that jumping around in our living rooms.
Yeah.
But that doesn't tick the box for a lot of us, because that's not what it's. We're not necessarily, for a lot of us, we're not going there to get our hearts racing. We're going there because there's so many other benefits to it. And I think that's what we noticed, wasn't it, when lockdown happened, when you could only leave the house once a day for exercise. It's that freedom of being able to, I feel like a run, right, I'm going to go now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's ever happened to me, but I might feel like going for a walk, or I might feel like going to the gym. I'm not sure I ever feel like going for a run, but never say never. And I know it happens for others, so don't want to disregard it. But when you like you said at the beginning, when you were giving your introduction, that only being able to have one walk a day, that restriction around being able to get out and about, I think highlighted a lot of things for a lot of people. So yeah, I think it's definitely widening and opening up that conversation for sure.
Brilliant. Cool. On to number 3. Now, I've read as I said at the beginning, I've done a lot of sort of reading loads of self-help books and things like that. And I've come across a few that sort of go into the sort of mind medicine, so to speak. So with this mind-body connection, do you think it's possible to think yourself well on certain levels?
Oh, big question. Do I think it's possible to think yourself well? I think you can. I think your mindset around your health is huge. I think there's a lot around positive mindset, energy levels that can have a huge impact. I think it's a big statement, isn't it? Think yourself well. I think it depends what you're trying to think yourself well from. I think definitely think there's certain things, that we probably have more control over than we give ourselves, not credit, but permission to take control over. Things like headaches and things like that actually, a walk and some fresh air or a sleep, that we can have that impact over. But I think in terms of mindset, I think the power of the mind is incredible. I think it goes alongside medicine for me. I'm not sure. I definitely think it plays its part. I definitely think that it is incredibly powerful. I'm not sure I would waive traditional medicine for mindset, but I think the two go hand in hand. I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot in terms of stress levels and energy levels and how we look after ourselves that have a big impact on our health. And I think both our physical health and our mental health. And I think there's certain things that we can influence and that we can have an impact on. It's difficult, isn't it? So I know people at the moment who are going through cancer treatment, and there's a part of me that says positive thinking mindset is not going to cure that. But I think there's also lots of other ailments and things that we physically struggle with that actually positive thinking, that power, that mindset of coming through, overcoming is really important. When you look at people who've got an injury, that the initial diagnosis might be, well, you can't move, you won't be able to do this, that, and the other. Mindset is incredible for that, of actually that determination, that drive, that believing that you can is incredibly powerful. But I think there's part of me at the same time that's thinking of people who are, really struggling with medical conditions at the moment that I know have got very positive mindsets. It's not going to solve this one for them. So the answer is yes, but it's not. I think it goes hand in hand with medicine.
It's like everything is a balance, isn't there? It's sort of it's I think the only reason I sort of bring it up really is because it's sort of you do. I mean, and I suppose that's where sort of like the science and the brain and everything sort of comes into it a bit, that and even beliefs that you take on from other people and stuff like that. I knew somebody who he used to smoke, and we all said, "Oh, you should quit smoking." And as an ex-smoker, of course, I was in a good place to say that. And his thing was, oh well, I've got cancer genes or something, or there's cancer's gone in my family, so it doesn't really matter, whatever. And I've learned a lot more about the power of sort of beliefs and stuff. So I know it can't stop things happening, but you sort of, there's some point where you sort of think, with the power of the mind and everything. And I think that's one thing I've learned, is that this computer in our head is so powerful. And yeah, you read in some of these books and these amazing stories of people that have sort of thought themselves well, but I think you're right. It's that mindset around lifestyle, positivity, things like that. And yeah, you get a lot of people to say, oh, think positive and you'll be fine, and it's kind of like, no, it's not quite that easy.
Right. I mean, I gave up smoking through hypnotherapy, one session. So for that to work, that's mindset, to change that habit that had been a habit for years, to change that with that's the power of the mind. That's the power of tapping into what your brain is capable of to make things work for you. And I think pain relief, even just in terms of, I've you have pain, and just to, for some pain, just being able to take some really deep breaths and to ground yourself and to visualize the pain leaving your body when you exhale, that for me has reduced pain. Breathe through the pain, reduce the pain. That has worked. There's too much out there for me to say it's not possible. But I think you use the tools that you can, don't you, to for the outcome that you want. And I think mindset is one of them. But then also, Western medicine, if you like, but then also, there's a lot of other more traditional natural medicines that I think also play their part. So, I think very open, very, very open to it. But in terms of, people, I think the other thing for me is with the mindset and the healing is how you see people overcome and making the best of what the situation that they're in. And I think that for me is also something that's very clear. In you have a diagnosis and you watch how people respond to it and how their mindset taps in how they manage what is happening, can be the real difference between, shutting yourself in bed and saying, this is it, and kind of closing down to it, to sort of tapping into that sort of warrior mentality, or into that positive mindset of that, believing in treatment, believing that there's better days coming, to believing that good health is on the other side of this. And I think that goes hand in hand with medicine and treatment and all of those other things as well. So definitely hand in hand. I wonder whether, we're still, I think the Western world is probably a bit further behind to some of the rest of the world in this.
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
But it definitely, I mean, it fascinates me when you see and read these stories of what people are able to overcome. It's fascinating. And I think, it's just, there's too much there to say no.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah, really interesting.
Brilliant. Okay, on to the next one. We sort of mentioned nutrition already a little bit about with the connection. So obviously what do you think of, there's the role of the gut in mental well-being? Again, some people have described it almost as the second brain. So how important is what we eat and, what we put into our body, eat and drink, to mental well-being?
Huge. It's huge. I think we massively underestimate how food makes us feel in terms of energy levels, but also just in terms of, that mood as well. So I have ulcerative colitis, which I have in different chats kind of talked about it. But for me, if I get a flare up, I get fatigue. So the fatigue it's not tiredness, it's a different type of fatigue, and it's very, very draining, and it impacts my mood. And so, and I for me, I could have medication, but I have, I managed to keep the flare-ups at a minimum by eating well and by keeping my stress levels low. And if I start to get some of the warning signs that things are not great, then I increase my sleep. I look at what I'm eating. I'm a lot more strict with what I'm eating, and I make sure that I have lots of downtime and that I slow my pace down, because that's my warning sign. So and this is just something in a very small portion of my gut, but it impacts everything. So I think unless you have started to adapt what you eat, you don't really know what the difference is. It's almost that you don't know what you don't know, isn't it? Of, well, I've always eaten this way. Well, then you don't know the difference unless you try eating in a different way that makes that difference. And I've experimented with different types of diet and different ways of eating massively over the years. Initially, because I was looking for a quick fix to weight loss, and then after that, more as sort of that curiosity of reading about different ways that people eat and trying it out to see the difference for me in terms of things like intermittent fasting. Okay, if I only eat in a small window, how does that impact my energy levels? How does it impact my sleep? How does it impact how I feel? Not eating meat, a more vegan lifestyle, a vegan way of eating. I've tried lots of different things over the years to see what the impact is. Nutrition is a huge part of that. Just look at how the difference between when you're hydrated and not. We can't think properly, we get the brain fog, we can't focus, we can't concentrate, headaches, and that's just because we're not hydrated. So if you think about the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we're getting from food, if we're not getting that, it's going to have an impact. But because we don't always know what it would feel like if we were taking in the nutrients that we need. So yeah, I think nutrition is not about, I think a lot of people's connection with nutrition is, about eating well, isn't it? But I think the impact, again, we make the connection with physical health, don't we? We don't necessarily make the connection with emotional and mental health. And it's all there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I learned, again, going back to the neuroscience, was that there's obviously, there's the main chemical that we have, the neurotransmitters that we have in our brain for feeling happy and stuff, is the serotonin, and that the gut actually produces just as much of the serotonin our body needs and our brain does. And I think that was sort of one of the key facts that I learned, and it was kind of like, wow, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then when you think more about it, it is lifestyle choices again, isn't it, that you come to. It's sort of, and I've done it myself. We my wife and I also, if you've had a busy day and we just go like, what should we have for dinner? And I'm just like, I ain't cooking. Are you cooking? No. So you sort of scrounge through the fridge for whatever's easy, or so I think that's what people sort of then jump to, the processed foods. Even things like coffee in the morning and stuff like that. It's all, and again, it goes back to that association, isn't it, of what we give to the sort of different food types and stuff. So it's people saying in the morning, oh, I can't function until I've had my coffee in the morning, sort of thing. So it's I think that's the one thing I've seen is very much it's about that, I suppose, just tweaking those lifestyle choices that sort of make you feel you will feel a little bit better after you've done them, but then still also keeping some of the the naughty treats as well. So you're not, because I think that can be more stressful. I think the diets, things like that, can be more stressful than actually.
But everybody, it's not jumping to the extreme, isn't it? It's just like you said, making the little tweaks of, okay, just I have coffee every morning. I actually find it helps with my digestion. So it's a bit too much information there, apologies. But it's the coffee, but I know that I am I limit to that 2 mugs in the morning, and then after that I don't have any caffeine at all, and I drink water for the rest of the day. So it's understanding, okay, what works, where is it in balance, and I think this is the thing for a lot of things, isn't it, of you just need to make some minor adjustments to bring things back into balance. So it doesn't mean that you need to restrict and take everything, strip it out of your diet completely. Just, dial it down a little bit so that it starts to get back into balance until you find that balance that works for you, because it will, be different for different people, but you don't know unless you try. So, people talk about, skin, energy levels, headaches, migraines, all of these things that actually, you can take medicine for it and it will stop you feeling the problem, or you can start to make some adjustments of some of the things that might be causing the headaches and the skin and upset tummies and things like that. And actually, sometimes it's nutrition, and sometimes it's stress, and sometimes it's sleep. And again, we go back around the mind-body connection of where it has that impact. And I think sometimes if we try and ignore it, the body will just keep showing us signs that something needs to be done about it. And sometimes we get a warning light, and if we choose to ignore the warning light, it's just going to shut down something else in a different way until we are forced to look at the problem. And I think sometimes that's mind to body, and sometimes that's body to mind. So it's all connected.
It's the two working together to sort of flag those signals, isn't it? And you've got to sort of either choose to go with them or ignore them. But and sometimes the body will shout louder than you sometimes think it will.
It's like, you're not listening, so I'll just tap in and show you in a different way. And there's so many things, aren't there? Things like back pain, shoulder pain, migraines, headaches, bad skin, all of these things are quite often, they're, if you backtrack into it to look at what, and they're things that are in our control that we can change. But it's got to be open to trying something different to see what feels different as a result. So
it's because it was interesting. I did because I'm doing a marathon challenge at the end of the month, so at the end of June, so I've sort of asked a local university sports science nutritionist to help sort of give us a few ideas. So she said, right, fill out a food journal for 3 days. And when you actually stop and literally have to write down every single thing you've eaten and drunk during a day, you sort of think, that's a little bit too much, or maybe I shouldn't have had that, or but it's amazing to just get you thinking, actually, wow, I've got this habit, or I keep doing this every day, or I've got to have my chocolate biscuits in the afternoon to give me my sugar hit, and all of those sorts of things. So it's really interesting just to see quite what you do nibble on, and just the snacks and all those sorts of things, they all sort of add up and things. So that was a real sort of eye-opener for me, of trying to cut certain things out, I think, definitely. So
it's that taking notice, isn't it? The minute you need to keep a diary and start to write it all down, and you realize how much, I think for me, I'm a routine eater, so it's just breaking habits for me. And like you said, you want something that's quick and easy, but at the same time, it's having access to things that are quick and easy to make, and being able to do that. So my relationship with food has changed massively over the years, because I ate because I wasn't happy, and then I ate in a way to try and lose weight, and then in training I was eating to gain muscle, and then I was eating for energy and competitions, and then when that finished, it was like, oh my god, I can't eat half as much as I was eating. So I completely had to adapt to that, and now it's so much of my so much of the kind of proportion of my day is sedentary. It's sitting here in this chair, that actually, well, I'm at 2,500 steps. So I know that I need to, make sure that I keep in check, keeping my activity levels to balance out the fact that I'm sat here in the chair. But it also means that from a nutrition perspective, I need to adjust the fact that I don't need a lot of food because I'm not really doing anything, but I do need food that helps me to focus, that helps me to concentrate, that helps me to fuel what I want to get done. And so, yeah, I think, it changes all the time in terms of what I need to eat for, what are my, not goals, but life changes. And so the way that you eat and the way that you move changes with it, but it all has an impact, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's quite interesting you say that, because you don't sort of again think of food for your brain, do you? Really, you sort of again you think physically how it's going to keep you going. Like you say, you have your coffee, or I mean, like the last office I used to work at, was my last job. We sort of, everyone in the office sort of synchronized into this. Your coffee in the morning, 10 o'clock snack, and go and have lunch, and then 4 o'clock everyone used to start flagging. So it used to be down to the supermarket to get sweets and biscuits and things, and it was weird. It was sort of like 50 odd people just in the same sort of cycle. But you don't you're just literally thinking this is just to keep me going physically, rather than actually thinking about why are you doing it. Like you said, attention, thoughts, all those things, that's so mental rather than actual just physical. But again, you don't really think of food in that way of fueling your brain, and it's a weird
and I think that's if I look at an average day, I just to that connection of looking at, okay, what I look at my day and I look at, right, okay, where are my windows to go and move, to leave the office, get a change of scenery, change my physical state, to go and change my mental state. So if I going from one client to another, I need to leave the room to change my mental and emotional state so that I'm not taking one session into another. And I look at the windows of where I can go and make myself something to eat. How much time have I got? Have I got enough time to go and cook and eat? Or do I cook in one window and eat in another? Or, do I find windows? I think, okay, it's a small window, so I'll just have smaller snacks today rather than a bigger meal. So, I look at that. When I look at my day, I'm looking at, okay, what have I got in the day? Where do I need a break? Where do I need a change of location, change of scenery? Can I fit in a bit of a walk there? Or, where will I go to the, a gym or go for a run or whatever? Where does that all fit in that day? And that's, that is the mind-body connection, isn't it? Of getting out, changing my physical state, changing my emotional and mental state to make sure that I am in balance all day.
It takes a lot of monitoring, doesn't it, really, when you think about it?
It does, but it's become very much the norm. So I don't have to, there's no post-it note to remind myself to do it. It's become the routine, but the routine is variety, so it does change dependent on what I'm doing. But I've noticed, with lockdown and much more online working, and the restrictions, that I'm not moving as much as I was before. So I've had to adjust again because I'm not getting that activity in. So yeah, just leaving this office space, even if it's just for a walk, half an hour walk down round the park and back again, of just getting that fresh air, some vitamin D, change of scenery, change your headspace, take a bit of a breather and come back. And it makes all of the difference. So
good stuff. Cool. On to the last question. It's kind of, I suppose, we sort of covered a lot of it. The last question is sort of, what do you do, or what's your sort of top tips for getting the mind and body working in harmony? So I suppose really we could use this one as more like a summarizing over sort of what we sort of said already, because you covered quite a lot of it. Really.
It's a good question. It's a good question in isolation. I think my top tip, or I think one thing that I remind myself of, is that quite often the thing that I least feel like is the thing that I need the most. And sometimes if I don't, it's again that the mental state to physical state. Sometimes changing my physical state will change my mental state. And sometimes changing my mental state will help me change my physical state. So if you think about, when you are in a certain frame of mind, it impacts your body language, doesn't it? Your slump in the chair, if you're, really, one of that, that piece of work that you keep putting off because you don't want to do it, your physical state will change to match your mental state. So your shoulders, or they might be uptight. If you're feeling nervous about something, your shoulders might be uptight, your body might be tense. So sometimes it's about changing the inner conversation to then help change your physical state. And quite often, and I think more so for me, it's about changing my physical state to help change my mental state. So, just kind of getting up and shaking things off and moving around, putting some music on, that can help change both, changing the location. Sometimes I'll just go and wash up or do something that I have to think about something else. I'm doing something else and my physical state is changing, but also my mental state is changing because I'm focusing on something else. That then helps change the state to be able to come back in and focus on things afresh. So I think that for me is sometimes what I feel like what I don't feel like doing is actually what I need to do. So if you feel really lethargic, the best thing often is to get up and do something that's a bit more energetic, and it's that element, isn't it? I don't feel like doing that at all. No, but that's exactly what you need to do, and your body will follow. You get yourself moving, your body picks up and goes, all right, okay, this is what we're doing. And you have that connection, don't you, of that almost that anchoring of, when I do this, I feel this. Yeah. So you might not feel it beforehand, but that once you get going with it, that everything kind of sets in place of, when I do this, this is how I feel. So sometimes you have to do the thing that makes you feel the way, even if you don't feel like it. Exactly. I'm not sure if that you're nodding, and I think it made sense. It's hard to explain, isn't it? Sometimes if you're feeling lethargic, the last thing you want to do is get up and do anything energetic, but it's exactly what you need to do that helps get rid of that lethargic feeling.
Yeah, it's sort of the habit, isn't it? If every time your body says, I feel tired or I don't want to do anything, if you just say, okay, that's fine, we'll just sit here on the sofa, I think that's when people slide down into that sort of, a physical sort of not feeling strong and fit, and also the mental mood slipping as well. Is, it's too easy to sort of say, okay, we'll just stay here. And sometimes you have to accept it. I mean, I get really bad moods, and all I can do is just sit on the sofa and do nothing. But when you can you're on that sort of thing where you can make a bit of a decision and you can motivate yourself, it just changes that habit to, the positive thing, I suppose, isn't it? So the next time it's a little easier to then try and do it, isn't it? Or to do something else. Your mind gets thinking, yeah, actually, the reward of that was quite good, so we will push ourselves a bit more. So it does make sense.
I think it falls into that you do your best every day, but your best will look different every day. So you might not feel like, you've got some days where you go and run 10, 20K, and there'll be other days where actually just going for a 1K walk is the best that you can do that day, but you've still done it. You've still shown up for yourself in kind of trying to keep that momentum going. And I think that's, when we talk about doing something energetic, I'm not talking about, going and running 5, 6K. It might just be you go and have a walk around the block, and then you come back and go back on the sofa. And that's, but listen to your body. It's a pretty smart engine. It's pretty good at telling us what we need. But sometimes it's, do I need to sleep? Go and sleep. Do I need to I would feel better if I just went and moved and got some fresh air. Then that, but it is, you can ignore it, but it isn't going to go away. That's the guarantee. That's the guarantee.
Knocking on the door going, oh, it's still here.
Yeah. And this is why I describe it like an engine light. Is it comes on, that's your warning. That's your warning that you need to pay attention. You need to check under the bonnet, find out what's going on, and fix the problem. And you can keep turning off the warning light, and it will keep coming up, and eventually, the car just shuts down, doesn't it? And you end up on the side of the road, and you can't do anything because it's made the decision for you. So yeah, it's a scary thing sometimes, isn't it? Lifting the bonnet and looking at what needs fixing, but it's ain't going to go away.
No, it's but I think, that's where sort of like, doing the work that you're doing and things like that, is it does help people realize that it isn't such a scary thing. It's a bit like, to give you another analogy, my wife does a lot of work with people's finance and money, sort of their relationship with money, and trying to get people to look at that is really difficult.
Yeah,
because it's just like, right, head in the sand, credit card statements will go away and all of that sort of stuff. But I mean, she sort of sells it in the way that money can be fun, which I'm still not quite sure about that. But the people she works with do sort of actually, once they get into it and they, like you said, they've lifted the bonnet, they've decided we're going to make a change, or we're going to do something to fix it, and then actually it becomes a lot easier.
And sometimes worrying about what's under the bonnet is more scary than actually lifting the bonnet and then feeling that feeling that you are doing something about it, that you're taking control, and that you're taking those steps, that then that every step that you take, you're one step closer to not feeling that way anymore. Whereas when it's ignoring or kind of that denial of what's going on, that's endless until you open the bonnet. The feeling doesn't go anywhere until you kind of work it out. And I think I did a resilience workshop this morning, and we talked about how a lot of people will look for a quick fix because it gets them out of that feeling of being uncomfortable. But it's about finding the positive tools, the positive strategies that help you to move forward away from what you're trying to move away from, but forward to a place that you want to get to. And so, it is about moving forward and dealing with it. And it's not comfortable, but there's so much of things in life are not comfortable. That's just, that's part of life, isn't it? It's the one thing guaranteed, that things will at some point be uncomfortable, but it's how, being able to respond to it. And I think there is support out there, but it's, from my point of view, and this is what we were talking about this morning, is it's that empowerment to the individual to take ownership, take control, and for them to know that they feel like they are doing something about it, because that to me is one of the first things that makes things start to feel better. So the problem might not have changed. The problem is probably still sitting there exactly the same, but how you feel about it changes. And that for me is a big part of it.
Yeah, so it's coping strategies, isn't it? And
yes.
Having that toolkit of stuff that you can turn to when, like you say, it's lovely to live a life without any stress, but it's kind of impossible, isn't it? So just building resilience, I suppose, isn't it, as you go along? Absolutely.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I think that's, with all of the things that we've talked about today, that's where it comes into it, isn't it? Of, some things are more mental, emotional, and some things are physical, and some things are all down three. That's how it goes sometimes. But it is about, that taking control of it and working with it and connecting it all together and doing something about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Great questions.
Cool, thank you.
It's such a huge topic, isn't it? And the other guests that are coming on this month, I think are going to provide the conversations, I think, are going to look at this topic from lots of different perspectives, which I think I'm really interested, intrigued as to where these conversations go. And because I don't know the questions, it's great because I don't know what to expect from the conversations. But yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
And great questions. Good luck with the running.
Thank you. Yes.
Crazy person.
I know.
Why you would do that voluntarily, I don't know, but we all have our choices, don't we? We all have something that works for us. And this is the thing, isn't it? It's never a one size fits all. And I think we need to spend more time working out what works for us rather than what's working for other people. It's great for ideas.
Yeah, ironically, I used to always be the person that would watch the London Marathon on TV, and for years, and I mean donkey's years, you say, hey, I'll do that one day, I'll do that one day, you know, and yeah, it takes something massive to actually get you out there and actually, you know, doing something like that. So
fair play to you. I mean, that is definitely mind-body connection, isn't it? Because that is as much mindset and, you know, determination and drive than it is physically getting through it. So
yeah,
to let us know how you get on.
I'll keep you posted.
We will put your sorry.
Watch this space, as they say.
Definitely. Well, we'll put your details in so that people can come and find you and follow your writing and the things that you are doing, so that people can connect with you. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on, and for great questions, and just a really interesting conversation as well. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are back again fairly soon with the next guest, so the details are up. If you're watching back, then that makes it nice and easy for you. You can just let it roll on into the next episode. But if you are watching back, if you've got questions or comments, do feel free to put them in. I do keep an eye on them, and I do respond to people, and we'll put Paul's details in as well so that you can give him a find and a follow. And if we've talked about anything today that you think might be of interest or helpful to somebody else, please do feel free to share this with them and pass it on. But thank you very much. Thank you, Paul, and we will be back again very soon.